to another exciting episode of The Trading Bell. Today we're focusing on Rwanda and East Africa in general because of course we have a very special guest with us. My name is Maalika. Kazia, thank you for making time for us. Today we're joined by Pierre Celestin. He is the CEO of the Rwanda Securities Exchange, and we're going to get right into the conversation about the markets in Rwanda, across East Africa and of course beyond. But first, let's take a look at his profile. Pierre Celestin Rwabukumba is a Rwandan national and the current chairman of the East African Securities Exchanges Association and the CEO of the Rwanda Stock Exchange Limited. He was the co-founder and chairman of Kigali Cement Company. He is also a non-executive director in a number of institutions in finance and business development, as well as hospitality and industry in Rwanda and beyond. He is also involved in different investment projects, ranging from real estate, poultry, and agro-processing to energy. He did begin his career in financial services in New York City 20 years ago after graduating from the University of Buffalo, New York, in the United States with a bachelor's degree in economics. He worked in different professional positions as a stockbroker. This was before he joined the Central Bank of Rwanda in 2004 to help begin the Capital Market Development Project in Rwanda. He has served on different capital market committees both at the national and regional level, the latest being the high-level task force negotiating the EAC Monetary Union and the Kigali International Financial Center project. He completed an international postgraduate advanced management program for executives at Strathmore Business School. All right, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Sure, thank you.
Let's get right into the conversation with the Rwanda Securities Exchange. Like you were telling me a little bit earlier, it was officially, of course, established in 2011. So it's fairly young if you look at it. And for the number of years that it has been active, how has it developed so far? And where do you see the greatest challenge in further growth?
Well, as you said, we are still young, but the moment you start becoming 7, 8 years old, you are no longer considered as a small child. So we are growing. For the first 7 years, we've been focusing on putting the right infrastructure in place. That is soft infrastructure, that is the legal framework. And then we have automated the market at 90%, actually, I may say, apart from the trading part, which is we're expecting to have to go live before end of December this year. Full automation of the market. Of course, we are linking also to the rest of the region, talking of which integration is very important in what we do in East Africa. So we have a regional infrastructure we're working on with the other markets, so it will be taking advantage of that so that we will link our markets across the East Africa region. So in terms of development, apart from soft and hard infrastructure, we have a master plan that we are following now. We started the implementation this year, 2018. It's a 10-year master plan for the broader capital market development. Of course, the stock exchanges are a big part of it because we are the front of the market, actually. So we are focusing on product development. So far, we have products in equities and debt instruments. It's dominated by government bonds, of course, the debt market. We've had a few corporate bonds and commercial papers developed, and a few equities. So far, we have 8 companies listed. 4 of them are from the region. They are cross listings from Nairobi, and 4 are domestic companies. But we have a pipeline of companies that we want to bring onto the market, either through the equity side or the debt side. But the offering is large. You know, if you look at our plans for the future, currently we are looking at the next 5 years as an institution, besides the master plan, but it feeds into the master plan. And that one is going to be focusing on product development again, looking at skills development, that is capacity building for market players and the industry in general. Everyone needs dedication. in our country, because the market, as I said, is very young. And so the product line, I'm not worried too much about it, but the public education is very important. And talking of technology, issues of blockchain and so on, and all these the product offerings for advanced markets is not our main concern at this moment necessarily, but those are things which we are watching. However, the focus is on the products, skills development, and public education for even the general public, for them to do to embrace the market and yes, deepen their savings levels, basically. So the challenges, we've had a few challenges, like the rest of the markets on the continent. No one is spared on that one. Maybe apart from South Africa, maybe, which is more advanced, maybe Mauritius, those markets which are far more advanced than ourselves. We have issues of liquidity and low levels of education. People don't know really much about capital markets, and our markets seem not to be very relevant to what we do. Okay. And that's why actually we are seeing people struggling to get new products, to voice, to make our voice heard in different fora, to make sure that you know, we make ourselves more relevant to our economies. It's not about Rwanda alone, that one. It's also about the other markets, including Nairobi, which is the big brother in the region. But you know, we are struggling mainly around the same problems. Okay. Liquidity, and issues education. Of education. People don't know much about the markets. Even if they know, they just take it as a second option for their investment products. So we have a tall order, I may say.
Absolutely. You mentioned quite a few things I'd like to, you know, delve a bit further in, but especially when it came to the collaboration between different exchanges across the region. I know you did mention earlier as well that you have, of course, you're a big part of the East Africa Securities Exchange Association. And how does that aim to foster this relationship between all of these countries so as to prosper together and, you know, overcome these challenges? What is its role?
Well, the role of EASEA, which is our umbrella organization for the stock exchanges and the depositories in the region, is basically to bring all our countries together, think together, and learn from each other, and lend each other's hands, because, like I said, the problems are common. And nowadays, you know, it's a trend across the globe. You matter when you are working with other people. So no one stands alone and say you are living in isolation. So that means regional integration is very important. It's not about capital markets. It's about the whole continent, starting from East Africa. So the stock exchanges also have realized that we must be part of it. So that we allow our citizens through the larger framework of East African community to allow free movement of capital, goods and services, and right of establishment. So it's part of the larger agenda of economic integration in East Africa. So as we speak about one visa, we must also talk about one market for all East Africans to tap into, to keep fostering our own economic development, because there's a lot of capital in different markets, from Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, soon Burundi, and the other countries which are joining, like Sudan eventually. The population of 174, without including Congo, which is knocking on our doors. So the Congo will bring another 50+ million people. Wow. So soon enough, it could be 200 million people. And I think the pool of capital you can get from that, and what we are talking about under EASEA is that infrastructure that can link us as markets, and the tapping into that capital, the skills, because we have skilled people, but it's not evenly distributed, for example. Yes. But you don't have to live in Kigali to give people advice in Rwanda. You know, you don't have to stay in Nairobi to buy shares and bonds on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, or Tanzania for that matter. Yes. So those are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that we leverage on, and we contribute in our own way as markets, because we believe in putting our resources together and to gain on economies of scale, and help develop our region together as markets.
So stronger together, of course, is the essential message.
Definitely.
Okay. On that note, we'll be right back with a market analysis. When we talk a little bit about the fact that you said so you don't have to be in Nairobi to be trading on the NSE, for instance. So I think a lot of our markets have seen a great influx of international investors. And of course, their interests are influenced by so many factors that are sometimes out of our control as well. So I think one of the key areas that a lot of people have been talking about is ensuring that local investors grow, and that boils down to the education, investor education. So what is the greatest hindrance in getting people to understand that this is a place that they can use to increase their savings, for instance, to grow their money, to increase their capital?
Well, it's a catch-22, that one. I think, you know, as Africans, we believe in our cows. You know, we believe in things we can touch, you see. So teaching someone about shares and teaching them about buying a shamba, like you say it in Swahili here, you know, it's different. So it's very difficult to teach someone, to tell someone to buy things that are intangible.
Yes.
However, if they know they are using M-Pesa and Safaricom and they are educated properly and you use all the right channels, I think something we have been doing wrong. There's something we've not been doing right. That one would be probably the way we have been teaching people. We have younger generations now which are making some small money here and there. So I think the education might be taken to the grassroots, across the schools and everywhere. People need to be educated using maybe the right technologies and the right infrastructure, whatever that is. When people talk about technology, it's not about the phone alone. So you can use any kind of means to reach people the way you do it in your country. I don't know what works in Kenya, but I think in Rwanda we have grassroots level movements where when government wants to pass on a message, there's a way you do it through our own Muganda. Every end of the month we have a cleaning day. Okay. And after that cleaning, across the country, every smallest entity of the country, grassroots, people meet and with your neighbors and so on and so. So if there's a specific message, for example, you want to pass on, you pass it on through that channel. So I don't know what you use in Kenya, maybe chamas, you know, things like that. So I think we need to rethink how we convey our messages, because the message we are giving is a good one.
Yes.
Because everyone knows that these economies of ours, East African community, the EAC region is the fastest growing actually on the continent as we speak. Some of the countries really are moving faster than the others, but in general, all of us together, and with Congo and the stability, you know, showing up and coming more and more in the region, I think we have a growing economy, and our people need to be part of that economy. So you talked about now about the foreign influx. It's good to have foreign FDI.
Yes.
It's good to have people from far to invest in our countries, but it's also it's better for ourselves to actually convey the same message of saying, you guess what, own a piece of Kenya, own a piece of that road in going to Namanga, you know, if you are to talk about it. And probably the best way to do that is using the infrastructure provided by structural products that come through the market. So it's a long way to go, but I think if our governments are serious about it, and including the governments, including politicians, churches, and us, the people in the industry, to work all together, because I don't think it's the job of the stock exchanges or the capital market authority. It's also the work of the churchmen, you know, the pastors and those priests and imams and everyone, you know, to be conveying the same message, because everyone knows that saving is something very important. And saving together collectively and investing together, we can even build all the infrastructure we need in this whole region, actually from the money we save ourselves. So, but the message again needs to be spread how it is spread best in each jurisdiction. Okay. But starting from the same curriculum. Okay. So we need to standardize the kind of message we are giving, and we have to give the right message and to the right audience.
Absolutely. And something else that you mentioned, the different kinds of products that the securities offer across the board. So recently, the NSE, of course, did launch their futures market, the derivatives market, and this is supposed to deepen the extent to which investors can actually benefit, can grow and further develop as well. So do you think that Rwanda is closer to getting to that point as well? How far is Rwanda from that?
Well, I think, it was about time NSE does that, to bring those sophisticated products on the market. Derivatives markets are timely for the Nairobi market. Remember, this market has been around for more than 65 years now. So Rwanda, we are talking about 7 years. I'm not saying we cannot leapfrog. Definitely, we will leapfrog. But look at our level of development. Our main concern is not derivative product, the derivative products necessarily, but it's something that we must be watching, and that's why we are here. To keep learning and see where we can leverage. We can start interesting some of our sophisticated investors, for example, to start tapping into Nairobi directly, for example. We don't necessarily have to create one in Rwanda. But when time comes, when we have sorted out the main issues we are dealing with in our own market, and our main concern is to raise the capital needed to fund the economy, for example, in our market, and get more people on board. So in Nairobi, you have more people who have bought shares and bonds and all that, who have central depository accounts, who are investing already in the market for the past 65 years. So in Rwanda, 7 years. So we have a long way to go, but it doesn't mean we cannot leapfrog. We will, actually, where need be. So we just don't want to do it merely for fashion, because sometimes people make mistakes like that. You look at what people are doing and you just do it for fashion. You don't want to be rash, of course. We don't want to be rushing, but we are going to go step by step. Hopefully it could be in the next 4 or 5 years, I don't know. But the main focus now is to follow our own master plan, not to rush into anything at this moment necessarily. But we can start interesting some of the people we think they are ready for it, because I believe there are some investors in Rwanda who would be ready for this. Who need to diversify. They are sophisticated investors, institutional investors. There's nothing preventing them to start tapping into this. But the larger population needs to open a CSD account first, or a savings account. So financial inclusion is very important. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah. And finally, even as we wrap up, of course, Bank of Kigali was the first Rwandese firm to list on the NSE last year in 2018. And this sort of cross-listing brings, like you said, more semblance even between the exchanges across the region. But what more needs to be done on that level for there to be even greater collaboration between the exchanges within the region as we close up?
I think the exchanges are collaborating, I wouldn't say more than enough. We always have to do more in our lives. I don't think you are doing more than enough, never. So we keep working harder and harder. As much as you work, you need to improve what you are doing. However, that's not necessarily the work of the exchanges alone. It's the entire ecosystem. So that means the regulators, it means the listed companies. At the end of the day, the decision of Bank of Kigali to come to the Nairobi Securities Exchange is a decision of the Bank of Kigali. Equity Bank, the same thing. So I would probably call upon or urge the companies which are doing businesses across the borders to also start looking at doing, those who qualify, of course, to start looking at cross-listings. You see the Safaricoms of this world, you see the other companies in Nairobi who are doing business across the region to start thinking about maybe cross-listing in the other markets, because the other investors across there, they also need to be also part owners of those companies, not only customers. So they can also own a stake in those companies. And it comes with different advantages, of course, also of marketability and visibility that is increased by dual listings and so on. So I think it's a concerted effort that everyone has to see themselves in, including policymakers and regulators and the issuers themselves, and the people will follow what you bring to their table.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all the insight and for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
That means it's time to take a look at the markets. Let's have a look at the figures that have come out of the bourse this week compared to last. Now that you've seen some of the losers, movers and gainers of the week, let's take a look at Markets 101. Of course, we do like to make sure that you have a little tidbit of history every time that you tune in to the Trading Bell. So let's take a look at the NSE historical fact. All right, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Trading Bell. Of course, we did have some insight into the Rwanda Securities Exchange and how the interplay is within the region at large. You can keep up with us via our social media handles appearing on your screen right now. Thank you for watching and see you next time on the Trading Bell.